episode 2 of Realty Rundown, ORRA's monthly podcast led by our executive mind of the board of directors. Each month, we dive into issues shaping real estate in Central Florida, hear from our leaders in our industry, and review the latest market trends. Today, we are exploring demographic shifts, cultural, social, and political influences on housing preferences. This is just not a high level concept. It's what we are experiencing right now. Generational changes, families relocating to Central Florida, and evolving cultural expectations. These are the things that are reshaping the way people think about housing and communities. As realtors, we need to understand these forces if we want to meet our clients where they are and stay ahead of the ever-changing market. I'm joined today by two of my colleagues from the board of directors, Rocky Sanchez and Christopher Nutt. Both of these realtors bring diverse professional experiences and leadership in our industry. Together, we're going to discuss these shifts, what they mean for realtors, and how we can better serve our clients. Thank you, Rocky and Christopher, for being here.
Absolutely. Thank you for having us.
Thank you. We're excited to be here.
So, as I stated in the intro, there's about 3 or 4 segments we're going to be speaking about. We're going to start with the first one, the demographic shifts. So, understanding the demographic shifts. I have a question. What are the most significant demographic shifts we are seeing in Central Florida right now, and how are they showing up in our housing market?
Great question.
Christopher, would you like to jump on that?
Sure, absolutely. So I think there's probably a combination of stuff, right? I think we're seeing things with people wanting to move, downsizing. We're seeing, again, baby boomers that are, they're downsizing their households. We actually are seeing young families that are upsizing. We're seeing a combination of all the above. And I think that's one of the great things about today's episode is that we're going to be touching on all those points, right?
Yeah.
So, and a lot of, great questions, some stats as well. But, it's all about what's going on in the here and now. So,
Yeah.
yeah. Rocky, how about you?
No, that's actually a great point. And something that I've been seeing a lot lately is the multi-generational living.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
a lot of like the kind of like living on a compound, like buying land, building multiple homes, and just having that, the unity, your family close by, because we did see a trend of like the next gen homes, right? But now I think people are just kind of really wanting to live where it's like a little bit more free outside of that, those restrictions of HOA and things like that. So that's something I've been seeing a lot lately, and a lot of house hacking with our Gen Z buyers.
Absolutely. I mean, and actually, you bring up the term, next gen, right? I think these days it's almost like all gen,
Right.
Because I mean, next gen is when it first came out, but now we're seeing it all across the board, which is, been a really interesting shift in our market today. So, and we're going to talk a little bit more about that.
Yeah. Now, the multi-generational, that's me, because that's what we're doing in our family.
Yeah.
So we just started our monthly meetings, and our goal is to have a family compound.
I love
We're
that.
looking for 5 or 10
Interesting.
acres, and we're going to live together. We're going to age together, and we're going to take care of each other together.
I
Wow.
love that.
How many of you are there, if I can
It's five sisters. And
Okay.
we're going to build homes on this compound and take care of each other as we age. And we're going to age in place.
There you go.
Yeah.
I love that. That's what my family and I did. And then when we all lived on a bunch of land, and then when we transitioned, my family had the opportunity to live elsewhere, but realistically, we moved from a large piece of land over to a neighborhood, and it's like we all live in the neighborhood now.
Wow.
Still the country, but a little bit, a little downsizing, less work, but I mean, it's right close by.
Oh, that's so cool. That's really cool. Really cool. Great.
I love that.
Great.
Yeah.
Great conversation, guy. I like that.
Great.
Let's move into the second segment, which would be cultural and social influences, right? So, how are cultural values, social dynamics, and even in identity shaping the way people choose where and how they want to live? Where people choose where and how they want to live.
So that's a great question. And, you know, I've actually experienced this recently as well with, you know, I have first time home buyers, but they're very strategic about where they're purchasing. So they're purchasing in the community that's very walkable. It's got a lot of great outdoor activities. It's really important for them to have, you know, that lifestyle and that community feel without it, you know, without sacrificing, you know, the opportunities of being closer to highways or closer to, you know, resources and things like that. So I think where we're seeing where it's thriving is when these builders are, you know, capitalizing on that and kind of building these communities where you really don't need to leave the
And
community.
creating that infrastructure.
Right.
Exactly.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
You know, it's interesting you bring that up because, you know, and, you know, so Deidre, you know, I know that you actually have been around for a little while, and I've been around for here for a little while. And it's been really interesting to see just the whole, you know, dynamic and shape of Central Florida just change and evolve and grow, right?
Right.
I will say that, you know, I think Celebration, to my knowledge, I believe was one of the very first concepts like that.
Right.
And, you know, of course, you know, Disney is in the forefront of many things. And that was one, you know, that was one of their very first housing projects here in Florida, right? Really, I think in the nation, but really here. And you really had all of that. You had the little downtown market. You had, you know, the shops and everything down there. You had all the housing, whether it was condos and townhomes and estate homes and all of that. And then later on, Baldwin Park came about, right? With the revitalization and repurposing of the Navy base.
Exactly.
Then you had the other community of Avalon Park popped out, right? Now that was probably back in the 90s, right? I would say 90s, early 2000s. And then here we are today, we're seeing more and more that happen now. Horizons West, Winter Garden, you know, a lot of these, you know, and even further out like St. Cloud and, you know, Haines City, Auburndale, you know, where these little towns are being revitalized and everything is growing around them. And it's like everyone wants to get back to that hometown feel a little bit.
Right.
You know, I'm seeing a lot more of that, which has been really interesting.
I think another thing, Christopher, that's a very great point, but it's also the style of home. We're kind of not just in that traditional space where it's the 3-bedroom, 4-bedroom type home. You know, we do an ADU. You know, or I just want a 1-bedroom or just 2 bedrooms, you know, the flexing of the type of home that's being built with that same concept. That I consider another cultural value.
Well, and the style and the structure, right? Because again, you know, it's no longer just the Palm Beachy style, as they used to say, or the ranch style. You know, now we're seeing a lot more of those northern concepts and some of that northern architecture kind of come into our marketplace, which I personally love. You know, I love the diversity. I love all, and we're even seeing that as it trickles up into the into the custom and into the luxury market, right? We're seeing, you know, what is it? Disney's Golden Oak. You know, some older communities like Islesworth and some of these other ones where, you know, just the architecture is just so different, but it's not all cookie cutter, which is kind of neat.
I agree. I think it's just nice to see that diversity in that architecture, because I think it's just, you know, people want to feel like they're not living in a community that's like the same house side by side, right? And so I think that also helps, you know, either the younger generations really get more excited about purchasing, because, you know, there's just
I also think that young buyers are more savvy. They're more in tune to their finances.
Absolutely.
And they don't want to live and eat and breathe mortgage.
Right.
So they are reconsidering possibly moving back home to that multi-generational space, but they continue to live like they saw their parents live, but without all the responsibility.
Now that they have to pay the power bill, they're turning off all the lights, right?
That's what I'm experiencing.
They're shutting the refrigerator door and stuff like that, right?
Yeah, and that kind of touches bases on that when I was saying like the house hacking. So I have buyers who are like, they either want a duplex or a tri or a quad. And the thing is that we're living in one and we're having the additional units pay our mortgage. They're getting, like you said, they're getting way more savvy. They're really big on numbers. And, you know, it's just kind of really, it's inspiring, and they're keeping us on our toes. That's
Absolutely. And also, I mean, just again, to follow up on that, you know, and you said it earlier, today's consumer is more educated than ever before. They're much more informed, right? So it's a whole another conversation, so it's important, especially for us as agents, to make sure that we are, and realtors and brokers and everything like that we're staying, in the forefront, that we're staying, that we're staying in the know, because before they even come to you, they've done a lot of their research, right?
They have.
And again, we're seeing that in all these different things, but also, the revitalizations of like downtown and that live, work, play scenario, right? So again, it's just, it's really, really exciting to see all those changes that are happening, truly right here in our backyard.
Yeah, and being realtors, that doesn't necessarily mean that we know all and we know it
No,
all.
that is true.
But we are the greatest resource ever to home ownership. okay?
Absolutely.
And whatever the needs are of our buyers, okay, our job is to help them get to that goal. So I love calling myself a resource. I'm a resource.
100%. 100%.
And having these type of relationships with Christopher and you, Rocky, helps me because this is the land girl.
No, I mean,
Absolutely.
I can't express that enough. It's honestly really nice to build those relationships, and I try to express that with people when, I actually had someone recently ask me, kind of question a relationship I had with another realtor, and I said, no, don't take that as a negative. Take that actually as a positive, because then I can get more creative, and the agent on the other side is going to trust what I'm saying, that, hey, if I'm going to get this to the closing table, we're getting to the closing table.
Right.
We may have to get creative, but we're going to get there.
Yep.
So
Actually, we had a deal together.
We
This
did.
year, right?
Look at that. Professionalism at its finest.
I know. And let me tell you,
That was when
there
I
was
saw
some
her
ups and
name,
downs.
I was like, yes, right.
I know. And there was like some questionable things, but it wasn't between us. It was just,
So, yeah, there was some stuff, but
sometimes,
we're the professional.
We are.
And we educated our seller and my buyer, and we got to a close.
We did. And we're still great friends.
Okay, that was great information, very informative. Now let's jump into political and policy impacts. I'm a governmental affairs girl. I mean, that's the committee I've been on for about 10, 11, 12, 13 years. I mean, I don't know how long, but I bought into that particular committee at ORRA. Okay. And so being a key contact, FPC and all of that, I get all of that. So understanding that our business is built on policies and advocacy. Let's talk about policy and politics, how they intersect with demographics. What trends are we seeing, and how do they affect both realtors and the client?
Isn't this a hot topic?
This is a
I
hot
tell
topic.
you, it is a topic truly in the now. So.
Yes, it is. It really is.
Yeah. So I mean, I'll share. It's been really interesting to kind of see things unfold, right? So again, we all know that political shifts happen all the time, right? So whether it's whether the economy and everything is swinging to the right or to the left, it's always going to be that way, at least for 4 years and stuff like that. But what doesn't change is that need for housing, right?
Right.
That need for home ownership, that need to have that roof over your head. And so it's, and again, just different things drive the economy. You have interest rates, coming up and down, so forth and so on. And politics do kind of impact that, but it's not all of it, right? And so I think what a lot of times what I do is I sit down, and I think it's important for us as agents and realtors and broker owners to listen, right? Listen to what's at the heart of what the consumer's worried about. Is it really the political climate, or is it something that's a little bit more personal to them? Is it something that kind of touches more, touches them as far as affordability or the interest rate, or, is their dollar going to go as far? Social Security, I know that's a very big hot topic right now. Will the Social Security, does today's Social Security go as far as it used to? How is it going to be in the future, right? And so firsthand, I've actually had a couple different experiences. Most recently, I had some very, very, very dear friends of mine who are baby boomers. Well, if you're watching this, or if you ever watch this, I don't know if you're a baby boomer or not, but you are my dearest friend. I promise that you are. But they're an older demographic, right? And so they are at retirement age, and so they're wondering, where are they going to get the biggest bang for your buck? And so what they've decided to do, and we're seeing this a little bit more as a trend, they actually sold their home here, and they're going to be moving abroad. They're moving to Italy, right? Because there, the healthcare goes, the healthcare system is in place. They get a lot more for their money over the long period of time. So
with that being said, they've made a power move, a financial move to leave.
Yes.
Okay, which is an option.
Right.
Okay. With that also being said, have either of you thought about immigration, the policy and its effect on the demand of housing as it relates to immigration.
Mm.
So I don't do a lot of global business, right? But I am a property manager. Okay. And so I have experienced a few of my tenants feeling anxious about what's going on in the environment of our country, like removing their children from school and having check-in points within their community based on their immigrational status. Just doing check-ins, and I thought to myself, wow, that has to be pretty
A little different.
life-changing.
Yeah, a little different from what
Yeah.
we've experienced in the
Yeah.
past.
Yeah.
But you know, on that, you know, especially talking about international, and international is a huge topic of mine. I love it. And I will also say that talking about living things, I mean, just as a plug here for ORRA,
Yes.
but you know, it's great that ORRA, you know, ORRA provides so much to not only its agents and brokers and affiliates, but also to the consumer as well, right?
Yes.
And
Most
last week,
definitely.
case in point, was a phenomenal event. It was the state of real estate,
Yes,
right?
it was
So it was
excellent.
last Friday. It was focusing on Orange County. It was held right here at ORRA, and they had so many great speakers. One of them was from Visit Orlando, right? And
Yes.
again, and then that's also is a great resource if you're ever looking for just additional facts and figures and demographics to pull from. But in their segment, they specifically talk about the international market.
Yeah.
And because of policy changes, or it could be many things, I think what they also focus on too is tourism into the Orlando International Airport, which also does kind of trickle down into many things, including our housing
It
industry,
does.
right?
It does.
And so, you know, for 2025, they have seen, I believe it was, I think a 7% decrease in international travel,
Yeah.
you know, here, you know, than what it was in 2024. So it is down.
Right.
And I think some of that is because of policy change.
Yeah.
But like I said very earlier, you know, again,
Policy
you know,
and politics.
yeah, that's very true. But you know, again, but all things, you know, change over time.
Yes.
And you know, and again, things swing to the right and to the left. You know, all, you know, but we're always here, right?
Yeah.
So it'll be really interesting to see now as things start. You know, and I think that also that's when things first came about, right? When some of those policy changes came about, and people they are a little scared of the unknown, right? But now that you know, people realize life's going on, everything's changing a little bit. That is true, but life is still happening, right? Housing is still happening. You know, they're still out there. So I'll be really interested to see what happens when the stats come out for the rest of the year, as well as 2026.
It's interesting you said that because I was just speaking with someone yesterday who does management for short-term rentals, and he had told me that you know, especially in the Davenport market, it's really it's struggling right now, and the Airbnb market is just not producing the numbers it once was, right? And even after, you know, COVID, we saw a comeback in travel, but he's saying that the numbers are coming down, and there's some international buyers who are, or you know, owners who are selling because they're like, my money is, I'm not seeing the return on my investment. And so so what you say is actually
And so what area do you work mostly in?
so my business is a lot of Osceola orange, and I do some pulp, but majority of my business is Osceola orange.
Okay, that's
Yeah,
good
so
information.
but I have a listing in Davenport right now. Actually, it's kind of an interesting scenario when we talk about, you know, policy and things like that. So my customer, they are purchasing a home. They can't do FHA now, right?
Right.
So that kind of gives them some restrictions. They're selling their home. Unfortunately now, because of the market has shifted and you know, Davenport's struggling a little bit, they are going to have to probably bring money to the table to close the deal.
Yeah.
It's really
It's a new day.
It's a new thing.
Yeah, it's a new day.
I'm seeing that more often now than not.
Yeah.
No.
And
But there is hope on the horizon in that because, right, there's hope on the horizon because they were saying, actually, I was just talking with my lender earlier this morning, and I believe that interest rates are supposed to come down at least one more time by the end of the year. I think they're hoping that they'll be about 6.3, you know, and there are some products out there right now that are at 6%.
Yeah.
And then we're also seeing new construction where,
new
you know, you
construction
still
is
have some really great lower competitive rates there too, right? All to help with that affordability, all to help with, you know, helping people get into their home.
And to
So-
sell their product.
Right.
Yeah.
So even though there might be a slight dip or shift in, or softening
Yeah.
in certain markets,
Yeah.
it kind of makes up another area. So that's again, the neat thing about this industry
Yeah.
is that, you can take that hyper focused view,
Yeah.
but then you also have that overall view. And it's important that you actually look at both.
Right.
So that way, when you're talking to your sellers and your buyers and the consumer, that you're able to kind of give them that overall
Right, because
picture.
real estate is always revolving. It
Absolutely.
always revolves. It always revolves.
No.
And with that, since we're kind of going in that direction, we talk about market stats and inventory almost, right? We've been talking about mostly in the beginning about how the people side of real estate, what the people want and what we should provide to the people, our clients in real estate. But of course, we also know that the market conditions are one of the major items that we have to pay close attention to, and when we are working with our clients so that we can properly educate them, right? So let's take a look at July's numbers and talk about how they may affect clients across the board. So these are July stats. We're in August, right? So this is the most closest recent, okay? For example, the median price home was $389,000, okay, which is steady for about the past 3 months. The number of closed sales was 2,551, up about 1.5% from June. So that's up, okay, considering the interest rate we were just talking about. Inventory, 13 on the market, we have 13,557, which is down about 1.7 month to month, okay? Everybody's not working, regardless of what they say. Interest rates are at about 6.5, which is the lowest level since 2025 came in. So depending on your source and your resource, your lender to my lender, and the timing of what we're dealing with in our marketplace, those numbers seem to be kind of accurate, right? So with the interest rates dipping, are we seeing younger buyers or first-time buyers returning to the market? Now it says interest rate dipping. I don't know about dipping. A little dip. What are you thinking? What do you think?
I would say all the above. I think it speaks more to consumer confidence, right? Because the market really has slowed down and been a little bit on the quieter side for June and July, more so than we've seen in probably at least a good 10 years, right? So, but interesting enough, within the last 2 to 3 weeks, I've seen a huge increase in showings on listings, activity, again, people going to open houses and stuff like that. I was just talking with an agent the other day that was showing one of my listings who, shared that, he has probably, I believe, like 15 or 20 properties out there. So, he's busy. So, but within the last 2 weeks, I think literally like 4 of them have gone under contract.
Oh, nice.
After being there for a little while, right? So,
so that timing,
right?
So
that
little
consumer
while
confidence.
Like, what numbers? Throw some numbers at me. 30 days, 60 days, a little while, 45 days. Come on, give it to me.
Sure, no, absolutely.
Yeah.
So, so I would say, I think the average days on market right now is probably about 70 days, right? So, things aren't happening right away. So, but I would say, within 30 to 45 days, we're starting to see movement if a home is priced right. And if not, then the other big part of that is really opening up those conversations with your sellers to help them stay in the know, right? Help them stay in the now. And one of the things that I personally love to use, and again, this is another great tool that ORRA has, is our market stats, right? That comes out every single month. And so that way you're not just having to share that with them, you can actually point to a resource. And I personally bring that up, I pull that up and we go over those together, right? So they can see exactly, it's not just me saying
that, my opinion,
but this is what's going on in the marketplace overall, right? And so every single month, those market stats are there and they're there for us to use. And again, you can do a hyper-focused, look at it or do a general overview, but whichever way you're going to go, those resources are there for you, which again is a great tool that we have.
Very good.
I love that you said that too, because I get excited if interest rates come down just like a hair, I'm excited. And I tell my customers, of course, I think what ties into is education, relationships, like we just talked about, but also about, being excited and being forthcoming with that information, right? Let's not gatekeep this. There's plenty of business out there for everybody. But I think that for me, it's, I work with a lot of vendors and partners that are creative. They have options,
Mhm.
especially for our first time home buyers and things like that. And that's what got me into this business of first time
Oh,
home
wow.
buyers. They're my bread and butter. And so I always have a soft spot, no matter what the situation is. Like I have buyers come to me and they're like, well, my credit and this and that. I'm like, no worries. We're going to find a solution, you know?
Yes.
And it may not be now, but it may be in 12 months. However, like giving them that opportunity to understand what the market looks like, what we're experiencing,
Yes.
what opportunities are out
That
there
resource.
for them.
Yes.
Exactly.
You gotta be a
That
resource.
has been a game changer in not just my business, but in just the office that I work with.
Right.
And so, I can't express that enough. And then when we talk about days on market and working with sellers, it is really important that we go in there and not want to, and also encourage our agents out there not to want to just get the deal because just to get the deal. Right? When you sit here and you list a price at what the sellers think it's going to list at or sell at, or what you think it could, you're doing a disservice to your seller.
Right.
So, it's about learning, being strategic, and not being afraid to ask for help. Especially with other agents that you work with and things like that.
And not being afraid to have those tough conversations, right?
Right.
Tough
Because
conversations is
they're
what-
coming to. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
No, go ahead.
Yeah, no, because they're coming to you as the expert. They're coming to you as the resource, right? Or what I like to say, coming to you as the news source, right? So it's important to be able that you kind of help them. It's a journey for everybody, whether it's a buyer or a seller or things like that. So we want to make sure that those sellers really know what's going on, and that that this isn't the market from 2024.
Nope.
It's not the market for
missed it.
2023.
No.
We are here now in 2025,
Yes,
and this is what the reality is now.
Yeah,
Exactly.
that's where we are today. So, guys, with inventory being 13,557, which the stats say that it's down 1.7 month to month. Okay, so that means inventory is slightly down, yet prices remain stable. Right. So, what does that mean for downsizing boomers versus growing families?
That's a very good question.
Mhm.
Right. Rocky, any input on that?
So what does it mean with price staying stable, even though consistent where they're at, and then interest or inventory is lower? What does that mean for
Boomers downsizing, okay, versus growing families. I mean, I don't see the boomers downsizing. I don't see the boomers going anywhere.
Right.
Really.
Well, so do me a favor. Go ahead and reread that one more time.
One
just
more
so I
time.
can
Here we
hear
go.
that way I can hear it from
Okay, here we go.
fresh and new.
Inventory is slightly down, yet prices remain stable. What does that mean for downsizing boomers versus growing families? What if the prices remain stable,
Right.
right? For a growing family, that gives them some stability,
Yep.
right?
Well, I would say I would almost think it's a win-win for both
Yeah.
parties,
You
right?
think so?
Because we're not seeing property values go down.
No,
Right.
property values are not going
So
down.
whether you're a young couple or a young family that's looking to grow, whether you are a boomer looking to downsize, whether you are a a family in that multi-generational dynamic, housing prices are still good. They're still strong. They're still steady. And so all those individuals, if they have homes to sell, they're able to go ahead and sell at the market today, right? And not lose money, and then get into a home that they really want, that's going to fit their needs, again, at today's prices.
Yeah.
And then especially as interest rates, if interest rates continue to go down, or as the market changes, at the end of the day, real estate always appreciates,
It does.
Right.
right? So they're able to get in at today's prices and then still be able to take advantage of the appreciation as it goes along, and building that equity in their home. So to me, I would say, from where I sit and where I see, I would say it's kind of a win-win for both.
Yeah.
Thank you. But
That's a
for a
little my take.
boomer going down, okay, walking away with their equity,
Right.
where I am in my age, but where am I going to go? Because I sell, I take my equity. I don't want to move up to down. I want to slightly be up, even though I'm getting smaller, right? So that's where my repeat business is coming from. That's the hardest decision today is
Do
where
they
am I going to
stay?
go?
Do they stay or do they go?
Yeah.
Just like the song, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
So pretty much you're saying is that they're not getting the same home for the value of what they already currently own. that what you're saying?
Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
So it's a challenge.
So they're holding on to it like me. I'm holding on tight.
You and I both, girl.
But it's not helping the inventory. It's not helping the
Well,
inventory.
but
at
then
all.
that brings up a whole nother topic or conversation where, going back to the rental market. I mean, I will say we are seeing a little bit of that where maybe some of the boomers may be choosing to rent out their property and still and then instead of selling it, maybe taking on an equity line to do what they want to do. Reverse mortgages are becoming a little bit more popular because of the equity that's out there. So again, at the end of the day, there is a lot of different opportunities out there.
Right.
But that's why it's so important to make sure that we're in touch with our people, having those conversations in the beginning, so we know what the whole picture is that they're looking to accomplish, so we can help maybe guide and direct them in the right direction.
Right.
And adjusting our approach as a realtor.
Yes, absolutely.
How do we handle that question? That's the new script, right? But how do you handle it? But because we are a resource to our clients, we have to stay educated, stay in the game, stay educated, so we know how to give them the proper information. Okay, because either way, we want to buy or sell or rent on somebody. We want a real estate transaction.
Yeah,
Right?
I agree. I think it's about being educated, but also being solution oriented, right? So because what people want, they want to be heard and they want the problem solved.
Yes.
Absolutely.
Right.
Exactly.
And
Absolutely.
so, and like my joke, I say, I'm like, there's a solution to every problem. It's just how hard we want to work for it, right? And so, and sometimes people are like, "What are you talking about?" I'm like, "Listen, if option A and B don't work, we have the whole alphabet." And they're like, "You're so cheesy," but I'm like, "No, but really, like that's what
But
we'll
you're thinking
figure it
outside the
out."
box.
100%, yeah.
go.
And so I think that's really like kind of just learning, and it may, like we said earlier, it may not be the now, it may not be the solution, right? It may be a solution, but not for now. But 12 months from now, 6
But
months
an
from
alternative too, being able to know what the alternative is in the now for the future, right?
now.
Right.
Correct.
Christopher and Rocky, this has been great, you guys. This is some great information for our realtor community. I appreciate all your insights and all your stories that you shared. I do know that what we talked about, all the demographic statistics, they represent the people and the families that we serve every day, right?
Absolutely.
So by understanding these changes, realtors can be better prepared to meet client needs and strengthen communities. Thanks to our listeners for joining us for this episode of Realty Rundown. Be sure to subscribe, ding, 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 and join us next month as we continue exploring the issues that matter most to Central Florida realtors. Thank you.